and welcome to the 47th International Feature Conference. Welcome to the official opening ceremony. Everything is prepared. As you can see, the stage is set, there will be live music, and there are inspiring features to discuss. There's only one thing missing, and that is you. We would have loved to welcome you here at WDR. We are right in the heart of the city, in the heart of Cologne, but it's great that we can make it happen anyway. Let's make the most of it. And I don't know about you, but I'm amazed. I'm amazed by what's been happening with audio over the last couple of years. Podcast seems to be the thing still, like the last couple of years. There are big platforms involved in the business and, of course, the public broadcasting services. There are so many great stories, documentaries out there, perhaps more than ever. Hence, our motto of this year's IFC, the power of narrative. And I think the power of narrative can be quite overwhelming, for better or for worse. Let me give you two examples of features we will discuss in the upcoming sessions. One, imagine you're confronted with a kind of a nationwide narrative, but this narrative is not yours. Imagine, as a young woman, you're told again and again, you really should have a baby. Otherwise, you will definitely regret it later. And what if I don't want to? That is the title of one piece we will discuss in the Åke Blomström Award session. That's the session for exceptional young feature makers. And then there's this other power of narrative. It's more about our craft. It's the power of storytelling, the power of narration, if you will. When I prepared for this international feature conference, I downloaded some of the audios I was going to listen to on my smartphone and took them for a walk. And perhaps you know this feeling, this, I don't know, professional distance. I have to listen to it because I have to prepare for the conference. And then it suddenly hit me. In a moment, I think only audio can create this intimate. There was a situation, a guy remembering a phone call. And this phone call was to a close relative. And this relative was actually in a house. Well, it was not a house, it was a tower. And this tower was on fire. This was a kind of gruesome farewell call, a last call, because this person on the line, she, the sister, was dying. That's one moment of the Grenfell Tower Inquiry podcast we will be discussing tomorrow morning in our first session about serials. That, to me, is the power of narrative. I'm so looking forward to listen together, to discuss together. Some of you may know the IFC has, how shall I put it, a kind of reputation for lively debate. But tonight, I think, is about harmony. Grab a cold drink, grab a tea, grab a coffee, whatever suits you. You can watch us on YouTube, you can watch us on Teams. If you want to communicate with us, please use Teams. There you can chat with us. Johannes down there will be monitoring the chat. He will be there for you. But for the next hour, we have prepared live music for you. We will talk about the program, of course. You will meet some extraordinary people of the international feature community and, of course, the people who made all this possible. Enjoy the opening ceremony of the IFC 2021. It will be remote, but it won't be remotely boring. Reading the Water. Music by Zeitblom featuring Miyako Klein, and the visuals, you can see, are by Carolin, Röckelein and Damien daufresne. So let's talk program. What's going to happen the next couple of days? At the heart of the International Feature Conference always were two things: listening and talking about our craft. And this is exactly what we're going to do. We will start each day with specials. We will talk about immersive sound. We will talk about, of course, the Åke Blomström Award. Then we, of course, will have discussion groups. You have been, hopefully, already assigned to one group. There you have the chance of meeting the makers of the features and documentaries. And as every year, there will be plenaries. We will have talks about investigative journalism, and we will talk about how language shapes the narrative. That will be a mix of input and a Q&A session. And in the evenings, we will join in the listening theater. We will listen to a piece and then discuss it. We know the process to get here was kind of challenging. Who is on Teams is able to follow, for example, a link we posted there to a SharePoint page where all the information about the conference are provided. We also put all the content on the homepage of the IFC, so you find every information you need also there. And if you don't know how to get into the sessions over the next couple of days, what we will do is we will post at the end of each session a link for the next session in the chat. So you just need to click on it and then you can follow the link, and it can be a smooth experience for you, hopefully. It's new for all of us. We try and hope everything will be okay. If something doesn't work out, please be patient with us, because this is actually the first time ever WDR is hosting this. As I said, we would have loved to welcome you here in Cologne, and that goes without saying as well as for our Director General, Tom Buhrow, and he sent a message for you.
Dear delegates, welcome to the International Feature Conference. As the Director General of WDR, I'm really delighted that WDR is hosting this year's conference. In its long history, the IFC has been held 14 times in Germany, but never in this city, in Cologne. So it was definitely time to visit the West German Broadcasting Corporation as the biggest public service broadcaster in Germany within our nationwide network, ARD. Just a few words about that. The Federal Broadcasting System of Germany has 9 independent regional broadcasters and 1 nationwide radio station, and has created a lively and creative feature scene for authors, producers, directors, and composers. We have a system for national and international cooperation, as well as collaborative contributions from the ARD radio feature for investigative journalism. As professionals, you know that the radio is the medium for thoughts, for arguments, for in-depth, for stories, and also for emotions. Radio features, as the most open journalistic form, use all of that to put facts into context and make the world comprehensible. It is an indispensable genre for the public service media, and we are very proud of our long tradition in radio documentary making in particular. That's why the theme of this year's International Feature Conference is the power of narrative. It means not only the craft of storytelling itself, but more particularly, which bigger ideas do we serve? Narratives are a powerful tool, so how can we ensure that they are not abused? It was Marshall McLuhan who once created the narrative of the global village. So today, due to the pandemic, the IFC will bring together the real global village, the global feature community. We really would have liked to welcome you all personally here to Cologne Funkhaus, but the virtual space also offers the chance to network and exchange ideas worldwide. So I wish all participants a highly stimulating and productive International Feature Conference. We're happy to provide the digital infrastructure, but it is what you make of this that counts. Thank you very much for being interested and for participating, and I wish all the participants a very, very productive and fruitful conference.
Productive and fruitful conference. We do this because Director General says so, and we always do this. So we really try to make this work. But really, it's an honest offer. Try to get in touch with us. After the ceremony, for example, we have put together a room. If you're on Teams, you will find it. It's a small line saying meet in the cafe. So a few people of us will meet in the cafe after the ceremony. We will do this every day. So join us, chat with us, hang out if you like. That would be really great. To make this work for you and to make the most of your time, please let us know in the chat as well. What do you expect of the next 3 days? And is there anything we can do for you to make it worth your while? Write it down. Johannes, as I said, will be there monitoring and we'll make the most of it. We try what we can. Since 1974, the IFC travels around the world from city to city, hosted by public service broadcasters, members of the European Broadcasting Union. And perhaps you know this, the IFC is one of 2 unique conferences or shows very closely attached to the EBU. One is a bit older, but considerably smaller. It's called the Eurovision Song Contest, probably you've heard about that. And then there's the other, the bigger show, that's the International Feature Conference. Since March 2021, there is a new head of radio of the European Broadcasting Union, that's Edita Kudláčová, and we are happy to have her here with us. We are very daring. We try to connect her live to this show. Edita, if I'm very lucky, you could hear me. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Yes, I can hear you.
That's great.
I think the connection, a good beginning.
Yeah.
I greet all of you from Prague. Good evening to everybody. It's a great pleasure to be with all of you now, at least online, because we can't meet in person yet. I have joined indeed as the new head of radio, the EBU, in March of this year. I'm still working from Prague, but I'm hoping to go to Geneva quite soon. A little bit about my background. I think that most of you have known me because we have hosted at Czech Radio many conferences, including the IFC, also a couple of years ago. I have been working for Czech Radio for 12 years, doing lots of international projects, and I was also involved in many of the expert groups that the EBU is organizing. For me, the last couple of years were also about the new content, new formats, new ideas, new ways to storytelling, but also giving the space to new talents and to people who were actually coming up with new ideas and fresh projects for Czech Radio. So joining the EBU for me, it is to enlarge this network. I have gotten a lot from this network, from the cooperation on the international level. And I'm sure that the IFC, just as we heard, next to the Eurovision Song Contest, is one of the backbones of our cooperation in the audio. I completely agree with what we have heard also, that the audio is on its rise. We have seen lots of content from also commercial, but also public service media that is that has impact, and the storytelling is very, very good. This is what I would like to bring next to our talks and to our discussions on the EBU level, to talk about new formats, to talk about maybe also where we can collaborate a little bit more in creating the content, in exchanging our experience with new formats and new content. And as I have seen your program, and it is very impressive, I think these are exactly the topics that I'd like to focus on in the next month or in the next years of our cooperation. I'd also like to thank very much Silvia and Leslie for putting this program together, and also Laurent Marceau, whom you all know from the EBU network, who has been behind as the organizer and coordinator of all the activities. And I think this group is also one of the strengths of this group is that you are very well connected and you have always known each other. You have met at many events, and I think this is hopefully something will come back very soon. But also online, there are lots of discussions and lots of break rooms where we'll have the chance to network and to see each other, at least, via screens and hear each other on the projects what we are doing. So this is something that I'd like to evolve in the future and also build on, because I think that you have very, very good grounding for this cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edita, and best of wishes to Prague. I think it was 3 years ago, and you set very high standards. It was a high bar we tried to meet at expectation-wise this year. So thank you very much for being with us tonight, and see you around in the next couple of days. Thank you. The IFC, as Edita says, is about listening, is about stories, is about documentaries and artful sound. And at the heart are the features and the discussions about it. If I have my numbers right, this year, 21 pieces were selected from 15 different countries, We will hear, for example, about a little shop of secrets. We will hear about what a thunderstorm can do to us. And we hear about a guy who finally spoke out to talk about his abuse as a teenager. So it's a very wide range of pieces we'll have during the next couple of days. All these pieces were selected by the EBU feature group, Edita mentioned it, and its head is Silvia Lahner. She is with the ORF in Austria, and when you Google her, there's a small entry on the ORF homepage, and this entry says, Silvia ended up at radio 1982 by accident, but stayed out of conviction. So it's good for us, and good evening to you, Silvia. Hopefully you are there.
Good evening, Sven. Yes, I'm ready to talk to you and to the feature community.
So you have prepared a message, I guess.
I did my best. I'm very pleased to welcome the participants of the 47th International Features Conference and the friends of the feature community all over the world. Of course, we hoped for a personal meeting in Cologne, but as everybody knows, the situation did not allow it. This is all the more reason for me to thank Leslie Rosin and Adrian Winkler from the WDR feature department, and also the highly motivated team at WDR. Because without any hesitation, they moved this conference into a virtual space, and thus at least gave us a chance to travel to Cologne. Only in spirit, but somehow we are with you. As we all know, feature is all about stories, well told and acoustically well executed. They are the basis of every good documentary and every successful podcast. But the past year was not exactly made for searching the world for outstanding stories. The pandemic has put clear limits on what we can do. But apparently that did not stop the feature authors from pursuing their passion. And their passion is telling us stories, their stories. Nearly 300 members from our feature community, that is globally networked, registered for this year's conference. Some of them are good friends and acquaintances, but we are also proud to welcome a number of new authors from different regions of Europe. We have indeed received so many contributions, when mentioned it, that we will not even be able to present and discuss one half of them in the coming days. As you know, the motto is the power of narrative, and this power is expressed in quite different ways, as you will hear in the stories submitted. It will be our task to recognize the added value and also the innovations in these submissions. We can proudly say that in all these 47 years, the feedback in the context of the International Feature Conference has always been constructive and respectful, but also straightforward on the matter discussed. So everybody know what people are thinking in a polite way. This conference is, if you like, a showcase of audio documentaries, which is our business. And we take our business very seriously, indeed. At the same time, feature always has something to do with dedication to the genre and with political alertness. There are two topics which are of essential importance for documentaries and their content. One is the investigative character that makes features what they are supposed to be, a mirror of our society. And secondly, it's the diversity that we have to represent. We have the task of telling stories that reflect the diversity of our societies, stories that are preferably told by those who represent this diversity. In terms of diversity, we all know that we are not where we would like to be, but we promise we are working on it very hard. So let me wish us all a stimulating, inspiring conference. I would like again to thank the WDR most sincerely for hospitality and the sporting spirit in accepting this virtual challenge without putting any questions. And I'm pleased that the feature conference is an event that has significance not only for the European, but for the international radio landscape. And what more should I say? Let the games begin.
Thank you, Silvia. Hang on for another second, because you have been on the committee selecting the pieces. I mean, you can't pick favorites, obviously, but is there one thing you're really looking forward to the most?
There are two things. One thing I'm truly looking forward is the discussion with our friends and colleagues and the professional exchange, because this is really important for us to open up the window to the world. And since I've heard some days ago that Kraftwerk, the German group, made it 2021 to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I'm even more excited to listen to Henning Schmidt. He will give a lecture on Monday about telling stories with immersive sound. And Henning Schmidt is sound engineer and a musician from Kraftwerk. And so I'm really excited to listen to him.
Silvia, thank you so much, the head of the EBU feature group, and see you around in the next couple of days. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, see you.
See you, bye. So, as you often hear now, it will be about listening, it will be about discussions, straightforward discussions. But this evening, as I said, is about relaxing. So we have another piece of music for you. This is Zeitraum featuring Miyako Klein with their piece Death Row Book Club. Zeitblom featuring Miyako Klein, and probably you already have worked it out. They were inspired by some pieces people sent to the IFC. So this was based on Death Row Book Club, and we will be listening to this piece in a listening theater. It's a bit of strange, to be honest, because the River Rhine is just outside the door. The Cologne Cathedral, I don't know, it's about 150 yards away from the place where I'm standing. And it's finally spring. We could have been sitting at the river and have some coffee together and talk. But of course, we want to provide some impressions of Cologne for you. So we asked a colleague of mine to help us out here. She was born right here in town. She knows the town as journalist, as storyteller, as citizen. And we asked her to solve an important riddle. And her report begins with a piece of music we avoided this far tonight.
Welcome to the IFC, the International Feature Conference 2021 in Germany, Cologne, the most beautiful city in Germany. Okay. Beautiful is not perhaps a word people from Cologne would use to describe their hometown, but what actually does Cologne stand for? What is the Cologne narrative? You might think people in Cologne are very Catholic because of the Kölner Dom, the Cathedral of Cologne, right in the city. It could be. Actually, it is the second largest cathedral in whole Germany. It's about 157 meters or 517 feet. And it's a UNESCO heritage site and one of the most visited tourist attraction in whole Germany. But you know what? If you come earlier to Cologne, you will find out every detail about the real religion. In the spring season in Cologne, they celebrate and they like drinking a lot of alcohol and they like, you've seen that before? You will love it. People are very obsessed with Carnival here in Cologne. They actually started partying in November and it ends in March when it gets cold.
So why don't we celebrate in summer? That is a good question. But then we are on holiday in other countries. So what is the Cologne narrative? Hi Joel, we are here in the south of Cologne. Let's say in the south central Cologne. You look pretty relaxed. Let me say, aren't you scared living in Cologne?
No, definitely not. It's a calm city compared to London and compared to other places. There's a lot of green, there's loads of places to go to.
I do have a surprise because this is a beer. It's a Kölsch. And if you don't even know how to pronounce it, ask somebody to help you to pronounce this beer. And by the way, this is a Cologne beer. It's a Kölsch. It's not a Bavarian beer. It's an excellent beer. And Kölsch is even the dialect that we talk in Cologne and is the way we live in general. Historically, it all started with the Romans. They let their spirit in Cologne and a little bit of the road to Rome.
Then French only a few years later gave our houses numbers. Then the Dutch, the Dutch left cheese here. Yummy.
Oh, hi Walter, you were born in Cologne and even wrote a book about Cologne. What is the Cologne narrative for you?
I think Cologne is a city of tolerance, but this tolerance is in many kinds a kind of ignorance. You can do what you want, but not because the people are so tolerant, but because the people ignore what you are doing.
Well, people from Cologne, they're very proud of some of their famous sons. Jacques Offenbach invented the operetta, the not-so-serious opera. Nobel Prize winner Heinrich Böll, member of Group 47 in a critical spirit, and of course the composer Karlheinz Stockhausen, the founder of the legendary Studio for Electronic Music right here at the WDR. WDR is the biggest public service broadcaster in Germany. WDR is not only a broadcaster but also a producer and promoter of culture. For example, the Grammy Award-winning WDR Big Band. In the line of the saxophones, it's Carolina Strassmayer from Austria. Sound of Cologne?
The sound of Cologne is really a mix of all kinds of different sounds. Cologne is a very urban, very colorful, very open, cosmopolitan place. And this is one of the sounds of Cologne.
So now you know where you are, even if it's only virtually. Well, better than nothing, or as folks here say in the Cologne dialect, it is like it is. It is wie it is. What will be, will be. It could be it could. So on that note,
Welcome to the IFC 2021. Great to have you here. That was my turn, and now it's yours.
have fun.
Thanks, Sherry. And now, honestly, you know anything you need to know about Cologne. So decide on your own whether you, at some point in your life, would like to come. But make sure you participate in the remote sessions we have this year. Don't be shy. Johannes is there. Use the chat. Communicate with us, because you can meet great people. The IFC community is huge, as we have already mentioned. There are nearly 300 registered delegates this year. Experienced feature makers, first-timers, producers, reporters, editors. The community, I guess, is growing at the moment. And we would love to give you an insight into this community tonight. And to give you an idea who's out there, we have picked 3 people from all over the world to join us tonight. And we were very daring. There are different time zones involved, and we try this live, so fingers crossed. And we start in a country which has struggled with a lot of different narratives in the last couple of years, in the US of A. Neil Verma is an assistant professor of sound studies in the Department of Radio, Television and Film at the Northwestern School of Communication. So we are, I think, close to Chicago, West Side Lake, Michigan. Is that right? Hello, Neil.
Hello. That's exactly where we are.
Neil, my impression is that, especially over the last couple of years, university programs have intensified to deal with audio, especially since the second podcast wave started 2014 with Serial. So there are books out there are magazines out there on podcasting and storytelling. And there's one publication, the Radio Doc Review, where you were named editor in 2020. Can you tell us a bit about that, about the main focus?
Sure. It's wonderful to be here, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. So the Radio Doc Review has been around since 2014. It was started by a producer named Siobhan McHugh, who many of you will know, from the University of Wollongong. And we publish articles by producers, by readers, by scholars, by historians of radio, and we've published about 80 articles in its last 9 issues. We're about to publish our 10th issue. We have reviews of documentaries, reviews of podcasts, reviews of features, reviews of conferences like this, all to do with radio and podcasting and experimental audio and things like that. Our mission is to provide a forum or a space for critique, but also to lift up canonical examples, to bring attention to producers or ideas or new creativity, and essentially to provide an archive and a place where we can discuss kind of canonical questions, ideas, and works in the world of experimental audio, documentary, feature, and all kinds of audio like that. So it's been a pretty successful publication over the last few years, and a great place to bring some of the conversations that happen at a place like IFC into the world of print, and to bring it to a much wider audiences through that way.
So would you say, for me, as a reader or even as a producer or contributor, the benefit is that I got an impression of what's state of the art at the moment, what's going out there, perhaps some showcases being analyzed? Is this the main benefit, would you say that?
Yes, we often hear from producers who say that Radio Doc Review gave them an introduction to a work they'd never heard of, or that it provides an opportunity for them to nominate a piece that they think has been pivotal or has changed the format in one way or another. Radio Doc Review essays are longer, and they give writers a chance to explore and question and generate a language with which to describe and analyze some of the most important things that are happening in feature making these days. So I think as a producer, it'll give you a chance to nominate some work that you think is important to read, and I think that we'll put my contact information in the chat, so you'll be able to reach out to me if you want to nominate a work. As a reader, it'll give you an opportunity to learn about works you may not have heard of from other countries, other traditions, other storytelling methods. And as a writer, it would give you a chance, if you wanted to take a conversation that perhaps you'll be having over the next few days, the next step, and into a print publication that will allow you to explore your thoughts a little bit more. Then we provide an opportunity for that as well. It's an open source journal. It's used by a lot of academics and producers around the world, and I hope you get a chance to check it out.
Neil, thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time. I think in Chicago, I don't know, it's 6 hours, 7 hours behind us, so probably it's sometime around noon, so have a nice lunch break. Neil, see you. Bye. So we put, as Neil said, his contact in the chat. Use it, get in contact with him. If you want to contribute something, that's the chance, do it. Seize the opportunity. Second one. We are hopping around the globe, so that's the big advantage of this remote session. We're moving on to, if we are lucky and if it's working, to Nairobi. There is at the moment one of, for Germany I could say that, the freelance feature reporters who have been traveling and reporting for decades from different countries on that continent. Amongst other awards, she won the Prix Europa. I guess some of you may know her. Good evening, Bettina Rühl.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Bettina, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you as well.
We have exchanged the, I think, at the moment, most famous 2 sentences in any Teams or other conferences. Bettina, you are Nairobi-based, but work in different countries around Africa. Is it difficult for you to sell these, well, I wouldn't say complexer stories, but we don't know the continent that well, diversity, we're talking about this. Is it difficult for you to sell these stories to European newsrooms?
Yes, obviously it is, but over the years, I think there are some editors and some media houses which are still interested, and so it has become more and more easier in a way to sell these stories.
I was wondering about, normally, especially in not well-known or not well-covered countries in Africa, news channels or media, they pop up when something has happened. Often it's something bad. So, but you're working for background stories. You're doing longer documentaries and features. Is there a special reason you're covering it this way and not the newsworthy kind of way?
Yeah, it's a great difference. I mean, if you just pop in a situation which you don't know, you will never get the real story or the real content of it. So I'm reporting from Africa for almost 30 years now. So for almost or a lot of countries, I have some background ideas. I can compare situations of today with earlier situations. I have contacts, friends sometimes. So I think it's becoming more interesting for me because I can compare and still discover new things. So for me, it is still exciting, though I'm doing it for so many years now.
Although, as you say, there has been building up a network for you, would you say do this work on your own is the greatest obstacle at your work? Because you have to do logistics, you have to do the recording, the field work, and so on. Is this the most difficult part?
It is getting more and more difficult to get access to countries. So bureaucracy is getting more complicated and security is getting more complicated in many African countries. So yes, sometimes I would wish to have a team which would be dealing with applying for visas, doing all the bureaucracy in the background. So that is more a headache than it used to be. And yes, sometimes when I'm traveling in difficult situations, I would love to have a team. But on the other hand, when I'm alone, I'm getting closer to the people I'm meeting and to local partners I work with, to translators and the like. So there are advantages, I think, in the two ways to work.
I was just wondering about one last thing. What I read in the news is that, for example, Tanzania had a very, well, I would say a very distinctive corona policy, so to speak. Has corona make it more obviously make it more difficult for you, or how is it working out?
Yeah, it has become very difficult. I mean, for the time being, I have to do a test to leave Kenya and another test to enter the next countries. There are some countries where quarantine is mandatory, so you always have to check the regulations, and you definitely don't want to get stuck in a country like DRC with corona. So I know colleagues who got or had corona in another country and had to remain there for 14 days being sick. So that is really not ideal, and that is not what you would wish to experience.
Yeah, that's true. So take care, Bettina, and thank you so much for taking the time and joining us tonight at the opening ceremony. Farewell. Bye, Bettina.
Thank you.
So I was asking the last question as well, because we will have, I think, at least two pieces dealing in different kind of countries and situations with the corona situation. And Zeitblom, featuring Miyako Klein, they have taken some inspiration of these pieces for their next piece that's based on corona. This is Zeitblom featuring Miyako Klein, and the visuals come from Carolin Röckelein and Damien Daufresne. We ask you where you're watching this, and we get some answers, countries and cities. So we have visitors from Poland, from Ireland, from Oslo, Berlin, we had Prague, we had Vienna. There's somebody from Bonn, we have been to Chicago, we have been to Nairobi, and now we're moving on to another place. Probably, I guess you can relate to this next sentence, and the sentence is, it's a huge responsibility to tell others people's story. It's not a sentence I have said or invented, but Helen Thomas says so. She brings two worlds together. She's a documentary maker. One of her stories was awarded Best Story at the 2019 Hearsay Festival. And she brings academic reflection to the table. She has a PhD study about exactly this huge responsibility I was talking about. And she got up in the middle of the night because she is living in Tasmania. So, good morning, Helen.
Good morning.
Helen,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. You are underway with your mobile storytelling studio. It's called The Wayfinder. It's a little vehicle with a studio in it. Why is it called The Wayfinder?
I think it's pretty much about the idea that we find our way through stories, really. And and it's mobile, and it's about having conversations and inviting people in to share and open up.
What is it about? Are you just driving somewhere, waiting for people to come to you, or do you approach them and say, let's talk about a special topic, or how does that work?
Usually it's a project that I'm participating in. So I'm often invited to do, I'm often commissioned to do particular projects. So at the moment I'm working on a project around people's experiences with homelessness. So I'm doing that through the City Council, and we're working with people who have experienced housing stress, and they'll actually interview people who are homeless. So that's the project I'm working on at the moment. So I can kind of, I get asked to do all kinds of projects with my studio.
We have just seen a photograph, and it seems to be shall I put it? It's an intimate situation. Is it like that? That's always often an intimate interview happening in there?
Yeah, it's incredibly intimate, and it has been architecturally designed to have a intimate, warm and inviting space. Often I find that once I shut the door, there's this sense of it being a safe place, and you could almost call it a confession booth in some respect. But it's beautiful. People often don't want to leave it. It's been so beautifully designed.
Is this what I don't know, what it's most important for you, to get a real connection to the people, to create this intimate situation, to get a real talk, a real interview?
Yeah, absolutely. Often, there's a lot of distractions around us. Mm-hmm. And I think that, having that small space and creating a safe space for people to open up and share is really important. Often, I invite people to go quite deep, just to get to the heart of things. And I mean, that's a challenge at times, but it's really beautiful when you can get to the heart of things with people, really into just authentic, open conversations. And that's kind of the basis of my stories, really.
Your piece, it's called My Last Wish. There will be on discussion on Tuesday, actually. Was this recorded in the Wayfinder?
No, it wasn't. No. Most of those recordings were when Athol and I would sit in his lounge room, and we would sit next to each other, and I would just have the recorder going for hours and hours. I had, I can't remember how many hours of recording I did, but it spanned 5 to 7 years that I recorded my friend Athol. Right. And some of the recordings were done on a mobile phone, because sometimes we were in situations where I didn't have my recorder, but I thought it was really important to record the situation with what he was going through.
Yeah. As I say, my last wish is I've already listened to it. I think it's great, it's intimate, and it will be up for discussion on Tuesday. Helen, thank you so much for being with us, and I hope you get some sleep now.
Yeah, soon.
See you around, Helen. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So this is only 3 examples. It's Neil Verma on the academic side, is Bettina Rühl as a freelance correspondent or freelancer working in Africa, or Helen Thomas with her Wayfinder Mobile, just to give an impression how great and big this international feature community is. And this is only a spotlight of the great community which is out there. So really use the next couple of days, although they are remote, get in touch with each other and tell us what we can do, what you expect from the next 3 days. Before we start tomorrow, we like to wrap it up for the day. Let me show you how many people, well, you can't see the people right sitting in front of me. That's about, I think, a dozen people just standing here making this possible. Corona safe, obviously. It's a kind of a strange picture, but it's working. We do what we can. So our team is making this happening. I've mentioned Johannes. He's monitoring the chat. You will have met him already if you are part of the chat. And then there are 2 names already mentioned, and these people are now coming on stage. It's Leslie Rosin and Adrian Winkler. They are the masterminds behind all this, the masterminds of this International Feature Conference 2021. Leslie and Adrian, it's very nice. It's very nice that you are here. Leslie, let's start with you. I mean, you've been wanting this, I know, for a couple of years now, and it's finally happening in a different way than we all wanted it. But what can we expect? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I hope that people will get a good insight into the German feature scene, which is quite huge, by the way, not only in terms of production, but also in terms of styles and variety. But nobody knows about it because it's in German, and whoever doesn't speak German doesn't know about it. And I'm really looking forward to our discussions. I think
You're not afraid?
No, not afraid at all, because this is what the IFC is about. I hope for open discussions, honest discussions, hopefully controversial discussions, but still in a respectful way. So that is, I think, what we can all benefit from.
You have been on the EBU feature group as well as Silvia. You have been listening to more pieces. You have been on the committee who was selecting the pieces. I know you can't pick favorites, but is there something you would say, well, if you have only one chance to listen to 1 or 2 pieces, that's it? Take the time for that?
Well, I wouldn't talk about, I think, I don't want to say anything about the pieces here because it's not a competition. Every piece is worth discussing it, and I think we made a great selection this year. But I really want to thank our guest speakers who are coming the next 3 days, and I'm really looking forward for our debates. So you don't only get an insight into the German feature scene, but also into our current debates, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Thank you. Adrian, when we prepared this feature conference, you often mentioned in the meetings, well, I am not really a part of this feature thing. Leslie knows it all, but you dived into it. So is there something you are really looking forward to and say, well, look, I don't know, I'm hooked there?
Sven, you got me involved, that's for sure. What a great start of the IFC. Thank you all the contributors. It was, for me, quite thrilling. It's an experiment, this virtual thing. But up to this point, it worked for me very well.
We already managed an hour of 3.5 days, yeah.
But it could be worse. In the end, most of us are sitting alone in front of their devices. And I'm curious if we are able, if you could cope to create an immersive atmosphere, so some kind of connection also in a deeper meaning. So switch on your internal relation to feature, to stories, and to the human inside. And well, I'm looking forward.
Yeah. Join us if you can. Adrian and Leslie and me and Johannes and others will be in the cafe after this ceremony. We will do this every evening, and we will be there for you. So thank you very much, Leslie and Adrian. Let's have a look for tomorrow. That's the last thing. We'll start tomorrow, as I already mentioned, with a special about cereals, and it will be tomorrow afternoon. When I prepared for this, I always say, well, we start tomorrow morning. And it's not tomorrow morning, it will be tomorrow afternoon, 3 p.m. Central European Time. It's about the Grenfell Tower Inquiry podcast and Gunplot from RTE. It's a brand new podcast series out there. We will move on to the discussion groups. We will listen or discuss pieces about how you feel when your child goes to prison. We'll talk about abuse, and we will talk about the reason we cannot see each other. We will talk about Corona. The plenary tomorrow afternoon or late afternoon, early evening, will be about investigative journalism. And as Leslie mentioned, we will have prominent guests. We will have Pulitzer Prize winning reporters from the Süddeutsche Zeitung. And after that, we will have a listening theater about a case 15 years ago, but it's everything else but cold. So this is the program for tomorrow. We will be at the cafe in a couple of minutes. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we have another final piece of Zeitblom featuring Miyako Klein and the visuals by Carolin, Röckelein and Damien Daufresne. Thank you very much for this and joining us tonight, and see you tomorrow.